Hey there, and welcome back to Broke Up, Not Broken. I'm your host, Jamie Lima. I'm a certified financial planner and also a certified divorce financial analyst. And if you're going through a divorce, I want you to understand that you're not alone. This is your one-stop shop for mastering your finances and some of the emotional aspects of divorce as well as you're going through the entire process. In today's episode, we're going to talk about communication strategies that you can employ while working and communicating with your spouse through the divorce process. So whether you're just starting to consider divorce or if you're in the throes of it, this episode, I think, will equip you with the tools and knowledge that you're going to need to better communicate with your spouse as you're going through a divorce. So grab a cup of coffee, buckle up, and let's get financially empowered. Let's get emotionally empowered as well as we deal with communication strategies with your spouse. Again, I'm Jamie Lima. I am the founder and president of a company called Allegiant Divorce Solutions. I am a certified financial planner and a certified divorce financial analyst, which basically just means that I've been working as a financial planner for 20 years now, but I have a specialization in all things divorce on the financial side of things. So our job is to help people navigate all of the financial nuances that are associated with going through a divorce and helping you get through the other side and get a fair and equitable settlement along the way. One of the things that is incredibly important, and again, this is not really financial related, but understanding how you communicate with your spouse during this process is going to be incredibly important to ensure that you can get through even the most difficult of conversations when those conversations arise around the divorce. So what are the main challenges of communication during divorce? Let's start there. We understand, and I understand personally, I've been through this process myself. In 2017, I went through one of the world's, what I consider one of the world's most challenging and financially draining and emotionally challenging divorces in 2017. And it was very, very difficult to try to harness the emotions that are associated with communicating with your soon-to-be ex-spouse along the way. I've learned a lot of lessons, and I'm going to impart some of those in our conversation today that I think are going to be helpful for you. Mainly the challenges that arise relative to communication in divorce stem from the emotional complexities of the divorce, and they can hinder the communication, right? We understand it's not rocket science here. It's a very emotional process and very challenging, just from the legal process to dealing with the emotions and dealing with the kids and trying to do all this while you're working. It's just draining, right? So we're dealing with things like anger, sadness, the fear of the unknown. Like, what is my life going to look like when all is said and done? Am I going to be able to achieve the goals and objectives that I have? Am I going to be able to take care of the kids the way that I want to? Are we still going to be able to put them through college? All those unknowns can really have an impact on the way that you communicate in a divorce, right? And if we can just harness the emotions that we have along the way in our financial discussions, what I've seen is that we can get out on the other side in a much better position. And frankly, if it goes to court, you're going to look much better in court if you can harness those emotions. And let me give you an example. One of the things that I learned along the way, especially dealing with narcissistic ex-spouses or soon-to-be ex-spouses, is that you have to be very pragmatic and practical in your conversations with them. My rule of thumb was always, I never wanted to reply back in more than the 3 sentences. In an email, in a text message. You also want to document all of your phone calls to ensure that you're keeping a track record of the conversations that you're having. But what we find ourselves, especially in today's world of technology, we tend to communicate via email and text messages the most, especially if we've separated and we're living in different locations. I tell people all the time that the people that we're working with, that you need to operate like the CEO of you Incorporated. You need to be very pragmatic, very practical, and very one-word, simple responses in those conversations especially when it starts relating to some of the financial aspects of things. And because they're going to throw shade, right? You're going to get a bunch of shade thrown at you through this process, especially if it's not amicable. And you have to be careful of how you respond. So remember, try to keep things very simple, be very pragmatic, and operate like the CEO of You Incorporated. And I think you're going to get through the other side in a much better position. The potential consequences of not doing that can be devastating. Can you imagine making it to court and sitting there in front of a judge and your soon-to-be ex-spouse and, maybe some expert witnesses or some some people that have been called in to testify against you or on your behalf, and the next thing you know, the opposite side starts bringing up all these emails that you've fired away or these text messages that you fired away, and they don't make you look good. I mean, all that stuff is out there in the court of law. And you want to make sure you can avoid that at all costs. So you've got to be very, very, again, I keep using these words, but pragmatic and practical as you're communicating with your soon-to-be ex-spouse. Some of the things that you can do to create an effective communication environment or have some effective communication strategies are focusing on things like I statements. Now, I'm not a therapist. I don't pretend to be one. All of you therapists out here that are listening, certainly chime in and leave some messages in the comments if there's a way that you can approach this in a different way. But one of the things that I've always taught was always lead with the I statements. I feel frustrated when. I feel annoyed when. I feel like you're not listening to me when. Those types of conversations. And that's going to allow you to shoulder some of the blame, but allow you to look like you're not pointing fingers, even though in some ways you are, right? It's just the way that you package it and you work through the headlining and transitioning into some of the conversations that you're about to have. I want you to make sure that you practice active listening, okay? You need to be paying attention when you are having face-to-face conversations. When you're having a face-to-face conversation with your soon-to-be ex, you need to be paying attention, acknowledging what they're saying, understanding their feelings, repeating back what they've said and paraphrasing some of the things that they've said to you, just to ensure that they understand that they know that you're listening and you're not just listening, you're not just hearing them, but you're also listening to what they have to say. One of the things that people miss a lot in these conversations is that they don't schedule time to talk things through. Sometimes they pick the most inopportune time to have these conversations, right? Like you've both had a long day. The kids have been acting up, or you just came home from 15 different sporting events. I get it. I have kids myself. And sometimes it's just not an opportunity to have these deep conversations. You need to schedule time and give yourself space to have these conversations. You don't have to schedule time with a mediator or someone or a therapist or what have you. Just, pick 15 minutes, half an hour at the end of the week or Saturday morning when everybody's had some rest and the kids are sleeping in, and it's an opportunity for you to sit back and have a conversation with each other uninterrupted. You can be a little more focused. You're not so tired. I think that's going to go a long way in helping you with round out some of the effective communication strategies. Here's a couple other tips that I think are going to be super helpful, right? You want to provide specific advice, right, to one another, and you want to give them, you want to be open and honest with where things are, right? And by that, I mean, you want to be open and transparent about your financial situation. Now is the time for the two of you to get on the same page and understand where all the accounts are housed, who has what in their retirement account. What did last year's tax situation look like? What will this year's tax situation look like? You want to review things like income and debts and review your assets. Relating to the income, you want to understand if there are potential bonuses coming down the pike, right? Is there an expectation that there's going to be a year-end payout? Sometimes people get bonuses. We're recording this in 2023. Sometimes people get year-end bonuses and they're not paid out until the following year. So that would be, did I say 2023? It's definitely 2024. We're recording this, but I apologize. So 2020, we're in 2024, and maybe there's a year-end bonus that's going to be paid out in January or February of 2025. You want to know that. And those are questions, and those are some things that you want to be very transparent about if you know that and you're the one receiving the bonus. You want to be able to be sure that everybody understands what debts are in play. Yeah. Sometimes families and spouses have different sets of credit cards for each other. Maybe you're an authorized user on a credit card that you didn't even know anything about. You want to know about that because it could come back to haunt you. And certainly you want to know about the assets, right? You want to know if there are any accounts that are out there, any 401ks, any other retirement accounts, pension plans, you name it. And you want to know all about all that stuff because it's going to be incredibly important for the two of you to work together to divide up those assets, work through the debts, and so on when it comes time for settlement. I want you to gather all of your relevant financial documents, bank statements, 401k records, your tax returns. We already talked about that. Even the title to property. You want to make sure you understand exactly how that property is titled, because if it's in single name, there could be an argument for that being a gift or an inheritance from someone else. And you want to make sure you understand how all the title to all of your property, including vehicles, is held. My last tip is to focus on finding common ground and solutions that will benefit both parties. I want to segue a little bit into mediation. I am a certified mediator, along with being a financial planner and a certified divorce financial analyst. And one of the things that we find in mediation is that, first off, it works so much better when the two people that are getting divorced can work through this amicably. Maybe they're just in a situation where it's like, okay, now it's time for this to be over. We've had a good run, and now it's just time for us to go our separate ways and do so amicably. That's when mediation works the best. And what I find in mediation is that people work towards finding common ground and solutions that benefit each other. And if you can work towards that, you're going to go a long way in avoiding hefty legal fees. You're going to be able to make this process go a lot smoother. I've also found that when people can come to an agreement together, they usually stick with it. If you go to court and the judge is telling you that, hey, you're going to pay $1,000 a month in alimony and you have to give up half of your 401k and they're making this decisions for you, a lot of times that doesn't feel good, right? And it doesn't feel good because somebody is telling you what you're going to do and it's not your decision. If you can figure out this process and get through this process on your own, there's a higher probability that both parties will stick with what they've agreed to because they recognize that it's a decision that they made on their own. And that's where the benefit of mediation comes in. If you can't do this on your own, there are mediators like ourselves that are out there to walk you through the process. What I found is there's about 20 to 25 different pieces of information or check boxes that we have to check or bullet points that we have to cover as we walk people through the mediation process to ensure that they get a fair and equitable settlement. And we've covered all the bases, right? Mediators are at the end of the day, we're a neutral third party that can help couples work through the communication process effectively and reach a mutually agreeable solution. That's ultimately what mediation is. It's an amazing tool for facilitating some of these conversations, and it's not that expensive. I have a case right now that we're working on where a husband and wife are very amicable, and they just want it to be over. And we're going to probably get them through this in about 3 sessions. It's less than $1,000, people. Less than $1,000, we can get them divorced. And we'll provide them the documents that they need to be able to go down to the courthouse, file the paperwork, and be divorced. It doesn't have to be incredibly complicated, right? There are some other ways that you can get through this aside from mediation. There are some alternative dispute resolution or ADR options. One of them being collaborative divorce. Collaborative divorce is where CDFAs, certified divorce financial analysts like myself, therapists, attorneys, sometimes financial planners or tax people all work together to help people get through this process. And What I really see in that case is that it's usually best with highly contested divorces. If you don't have a highly contested divorce and you just want this over with and you just want to decouple, then have at it. But if it's contested, if it's going to be challenging and you need all these people to support you through these conversations, collaborative divorce might be something to look at. Do I recommend it? Not necessarily. What tends to happen is you spin your wheels and spend a lot of money, and a lot of people make a lot of money off of you, and it doesn't always work in the long run. Again, usually best for highly contested divorces. I lean more towards mediation in these cases, only because it tends to be less expensive. And again, if you can agree on things yourself, it's easier to stick with it. And I'll just and that's all I'll say about that. But mediation over collaborative all day in my book. So let's just recap here on some of the things that we talked about today, as far as effective communications. Right? You want to make sure let's recognize that there are some challenges that go along with communicating divorce: sadness, anger, the fear of the unknown. We've already talked about that. A couple key tips. Remember, effective communication strategies are important. I statements: I feel frustrated when, I'm angry when, I don't feel like you're hearing me when. Pay attention and be proactive in acknowledging the other person's feelings, paraphrasing what they've said, repeating back what they've said, letting them know, letting them see that you are hearing what they're saying and you're actively listening. Don't forget to schedule dedicated time to have these conversations, because that is incredibly important. You don't want to have these conversations, get halfway through it, and you're hitting, a really good stride. And then the next thing you know, one of the kids needs something, or it's time to leave for baseball practice. You don't want to have to deal with that. You want to work towards finding common ground. Sharing and being very transparent with one another is another critical step. Make sure you're communicating about the accounts that you have, the debts that you have, the assets that you have, salary, wage changes, things of that nature. That all should be out in the open. And those are things that we will communicate with you and help you communicate to each other through the process of mediation, which, again, I highly, highly encourage anyone that's out there to do this. Listen, my divorce, I paid, and I'm still paying attorneys, and it's 7 years later because it never ends, right? I'm since remarried, and I still have to deal with the challenges that my ex-wife continues to bring up. Right. It's always, we can never get anything done on our own because she's not willing to communicate. It's a very, very challenging situation and hard to get anything done when we're constantly involving attorneys. I'm probably $65,000 into this divorce with no end in sight, even though I'm remarried. It's ridiculous. It doesn't have to be that way. And I'll tell you why. My new wife, she and her ex-husband decided that they were just going to self-mediate, and had amazing communication skills throughout the divorce. They decided it was time to just decouple as a couple. Two amazing kids, and they have great friendship, and we're actually all friends, and it's very, very amicable at this stage. And that stems from having amazing communication strategies with your spouse. I've tried on my side and I get nowhere. It's not for the lack of trying. And that sometimes you're going to be up against that. But if you can work through this and find ways to communicate with one another, my $65,000 divorce compared to my new wife's $1,000 divorce, that's a big deal. Think of where the other $64,000 could have went had we been able to do that ourselves. So let me be an example to you. And that's why I'm so passionate about this stuff, because I don't want people to ever have to step on the same landmines that I've stepped in myself. So take my advice, work towards communicating and working towards an amicable solution. It is going to go much further. And you're going to have more money in your pocket to spend on the things that matter. Right, setting up yourself for newfound financial life and being able to achieve new goals and objectives for yourselves, and be able to put money back into enjoying the kids, taking them on vacations and letting them do extracurricular activities and so on. If you can keep more money in your pockets and out of the pockets of attorneys and staying out of the court system in general, like who wants to do that? So I encourage you to stay focused on this. If this was helpful, I would love, 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 love if you'd give this a like, if you'd subscribe, if you'd follow us on Instagram. We're at Allegiant Divorce, at Allegiant Divorce on Instagram. Feel free to join our Preparing Financially for Divorce Facebook group. You can search us up and look us there and join us as a group. I would love it if you continue to support us and share this information with loved ones and friends. And if you're in the situation, you need help yourself, do not hesitate to reach out. Send me a DM, comment here, or visit the website and schedule some time to talk. We offer 30-minute complimentary, no obligation, super private and confidential conversations with myself and my team. If you go to allegiantds.com, my schedule is there. You can link to our calendar and pick some time that'll work for you. And we'll just talk it through. And I'll be there to share with you. I'll share with you and let you know, like, hey, this is definitely something that we can help you with. Or maybe we need to send you in a different direction and get some legal help. Or maybe you need to talk to a therapist or a divorce coach. I'm happy to give any insight and advice that I possibly can. We are really here to try to help people avoid the madness and get through this on the other side in a much better financial situation. So hopefully this was helpful. Information is going to be in the show notes anyway, so you don't have to write anything down if you're driving. Come back to this. Our website's there, access to our Instagram and Facebook group and all that stuff is in the show notes. So take a peek there. I look forward to hearing from you. I would love, hopefully this is helpful for you, and I'd love to see you again soon. And with that, I will sign off, and we'll chat with you again next week.